It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. I'm Manish Bhasin. Coming up, England's Chief Midwife admits maternity care is not good enough. Kate Brintworth sat down with Sky's Laura Bundock for an exclusive interview as the NHS announces new clinical standards aimed at reducing the number of mums who die every year.
None of us think that care is in the right place. We don't think that things are good enough, but we are starting to see improvements.
Coming up, we'll get the reaction of parents here in the studio who are leading the fight for change. Also tonight, the health data of 500,000 people in the UK put up for sale on a Chinese website. The information formed part of the biobank database, which had been legitimately downloaded by research institutions before appearing on the Alibaba marketplace. Plus, fighting illegal migration on the beaches, the government strikes a new deal with France to try to stop small boat crossings. And the end of an era. The BBC blows the whistle on my old stomping ground and a Saturday lunchtime institution, Football Focus. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Maternity care in this country is in crisis. We've heard from dozens of families over the past year whose lives have been changed forever by failings in NHS care. Parents who've lost babies, mums left with life-changing injuries. And a recurring theme when we speak to them is that the health service doesn't listen, doesn't heed warnings and doesn't act quickly enough when things go wrong. Today, England's Chief Midwife admitted that maternity care is not good enough. Kate Brintworth sat down for an exclusive interview with our health correspondent, Laura Bundock, who put to her that a catastrophic failure of governance means women are still dying unnecessarily.
The loss of any woman pregnant or after she's had her baby is an absolutely tragic moment, and I've never been in the room with hearing that news where there hasn't been a moment of anguish amongst all the people present. So we take maternity safety incredibly seriously. Everyone is working towards improving outcomes for women and families.
But how is it in Britain in 2026, we're even having a conversation about a brand new package of care to reduce maternal deaths?
None of us think that care is in the right place. We don't think that things are good enough, but we are starting to see improvements, and we've seen that the stillbirth rate has come down. So we have the lowest numbers of stillbirth ever seen. We've seen the neonatal death rate come down. We've seen brain injury rates come down.
We've received recently hundreds and hundreds of emails from women saying a very similar thing, that when it comes to their midwife, they felt ignored, chided if they ask for pain relief, chided if they ask for a caesarean section, made to feel like they've failed as a mother before they've even become one. All these women saying these things, they're not wrong, are they?
Being listened to is the most important thing to every woman having a baby. She has the absolute right to be at the centre of her own care, to have her concerns taken seriously. For me, as a practising clinical midwife, if I don't listen to the woman in front of me, then I'm not doing my job properly.
When you read Baroness Amos's interim report talking about racial stereotypes, Asian women being princesses, black women having tough skin, able to tolerate pain, did you feel ashamed?
It's appalling, isn't it? I mean, there is absolutely no place for racism in maternity care. There is no place for any woman being in the position of receiving anything other than excellent care, regardless of her background, her circumstances, where she lives, who she's friends with, what her religious beliefs are. It is just unacceptable. There is no place for it in modern maternity care. So I was appalled to read it, absolutely appalled that women were experiencing these things. And it's one of the hardest things to accept.
We've spoken to a lot of families who've lost babies, and they tell us how they are fighting multiple organisations just to get basic answers. Why is it still so difficult for families to find out what's happened?
It's a terrible anguish to lose a child. I think it is one of the worst things that can happen to a human, and our responsibility as leaders in maternity is to make sure that those families do not experience that anguish. It's why we've asked services to look at their bereavement care in great detail, in huge detail, to make sure that families receive the care they need. It's why we put in standards for investigations. It's why we have a separate organisation to conduct investigations that's separate to the hospital, so that there is an objective look.
Families say to us, we read these reports, we see how they say lessons will be learnt, but they don't say anything about accountability. Do you accept that families feel that no one is ever held responsible?
Being responsible and being accountable is part of being a maternity clinician. I have a deep sense of personal accountability for what happens in maternity services, whether I'm practising clinically or whether I'm in this role. We also need to help trust boards understand that accountability, and it's why we have been working to put together executive masterclasses that work with trust boards to help them see what it's like to be on the receiving end of communication from them, what it's like to experience their services, so that they can improve.
Midwifery is a difficult job right now. We hear from midwives talking about exhaustion, burnout, low morale. They told Baroness Amos they have to lie about what they do. They're embarrassed to say they're a midwife. You've got a staffing crisis on your hands, haven't you?
I feel really sad when I hear people say that they don't want to talk about being a midwife. I'm proud of being a midwife. I've been a midwife for nearly 30 years. And I've always been proud to be a midwife. It's one of the best, most incredible jobs in the world. We've been wrapping support around them, making sure that first year in practice, midwives really get off to the best possible start. We've been having investment in retention midwives who help midwives have a better experience at work.
What would you say to a pregnant woman right now who might have been watching the news, reading the headlines, and might feel very frightened about giving birth in an NHS hospital at the moment?
So I spend a lot of time visiting services all around the country, and the thing that unifies them is a sense of restlessness about what is happening in maternity. They are not complacent, they're not thinking everything's fine, there's nothing for them to do. Every midwife, every obstetrician comes to work because they want a good outcome for the women in front of them. And there are probably 1,500 babies born every day, and most families will have a good experience. They will have good outcomes. So yes, the NHS is a safe place to have a baby, and I would always urge women, talk to your midwife, talk to your doctor, raise any concerns you have, make sure they understand what it is that you're worried about, because they want to see you and they want to care for you.
And our health correspondent Laura Bundock joins me now. Also joining us, birth trauma survivor and campaigner Gabriella Rai. Gabriella featured in our Sky News film The Women Who Weren't Listened To. She was diagnosed with PTSD following a traumatic birth, which left her with life-changing injuries. And we're also joined by Tom Hender. His son Aubrey was stillborn after a series of errors at a hospital in Birmingham. Well, let's start with you, Laura, first of all. I mean, this is a rare at-length interview with somebody in authority, particularly on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've been covering maternity for months and months now. And it's very easy when you talk about maternity, the inbox fills with stories from bereaved families, grieving families, people who've suffered harm during birth. But it's much harder pinning down people in power. And this is the first time the Chief Midwifery Officer for England, so she's the most senior midwife in England, has spoken since Wes Streeting ordered that rapid review into maternity following a series of catastrophic failings. So it is unusual to have an interview like this, and you know we covered a lot of ground in the interview, and you know she has a very big job on her hands. She is responsible for this huge workforce, for a huge system, a system that is under immense scrutiny at the moment, a system that has faced and is still facing a number of scandals, a system that many people have lost trust in, and a system that so many people need. We need maternity units, we need safe maternity care to deliver our babies. And as I say, we covered a lot of ground there, and it will be her job basically to drive through the change that I think most people would agree is long overdue.
And without being guilty of hyperbole, is it fair to say this comes at a real time of crisis within the service?
Absolute crisis. I think everyone would agree. And Kate Brintworth, the Chief Midwife, said it herself. Things are not where they should be. And she did also point to the fact that when she goes around and meets NHS staff, there isn't a huge complacency. They know things have been going wrong. They know things need to change. And she talked about, which I thought was an interesting word, the restlessness. So I think this sense that among staff, they need to do something, that something needs to change. But when you're talking in some cases about a toxic culture, about doctors, midwives not getting on, huge professional divisions going on, it's not easy. And any change, I think, is going to take time. But I think the one thing that campaigners want is that the change that is kind of being drawn up will have an impact, and make the difference that so many people who've been through so much and so many heartbreaking stories and so much loss, you know, that's I think what motivates, I think, those who are forced and put in that uncomfortable position and that, you know, unenviable position of becoming a campaigner. Now,
Tom, Gabriella, welcome. And look, obviously we'll get your take on what Kate Brintworth had to say there to Laura. But I think it's only right, first of all, just to talk about your own personal experiences. So, Tom, put into context with you, I mean, your experience with Aubrey.
Yeah, so Aubrey was stillborn in 2022. Pregnancy was supposedly by the book, continuity midwife. And then at 36 weeks and 1 day, which is before what we call term, Eva's water went. We went into triage. Eva was told most women whose waters have gone will go into labour within 36 to 48 hours. That didn't happen. She was admitted for 2 days. It didn't happen. She was very anxious. There's various reasons for that anxiety. We were looking for a delivery at that stage. We knew something wasn't right. Eva kept mentioning reduced movements, which got a heart rate monitor. And then everyone said everything was fine. We were sent home after 36 hours to come back 4 days later for another monitor, and we never made it to that appointment. At 36 and 4, we called up several times. The first time we were told not to come in. And then when we did come in, we travelled to hospital expecting to meet Aubrey. And halfway to the hospital, Eva started bleeding. And then when we got into triage, there was no heartbeat.
There's so many things that need to be picked up on. Your first meeting with a consultant was 36 hours into your hospital visit.
So the waters went at about 3 o'clock in the morning. We were at triage until about 7. I wasn't allowed to stay outside visiting hours because there were still some COVID rules in place.
Because this was just at the tail end of COVID.
Tail end of COVID, yes. No, we would have to see a consultant at rounds. No one came on rounds on the first day. So then, yes, we'd been in about 36 hours before we saw a consultant, by which time we were resigned to, we were getting expectant management.
Was there a consistency of staff, people that you saw on a regular basis, or was it very much a mixed experience on that front?
So it was a bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
We saw one consultant who was the on-shift consultant and a series of midwives during the admission. From the time we went to being low risk or no assessed risk to being high risk, we were completely divorced from everyone we knew, and we were on a conveyor belt and effectively had no say in our care.
And I think what strikes me is a couple of things there. That feeling like you had no agency in what was going on at that point, but also so much earlier, your wife knew things weren't right.
Yeah.
And that wasn't listened to. No one paid attention. And that's exactly what I asked the chief midwife when, parents feel hideously frustrated that when they say things aren't right, they're basically ignored.
Yeah, I mean, each instance of reduced movements resulted in a heart rate monitor, and that was that. Everything was fine. We now believe that there are issues that should have been looked at.
So you came to find out as well that you weren't on your own, right, when it came to that hospital, in terms of question marks over other families who'd been similarly affected?
So there was a CQC report into the hospital which came out in February, and that identified that of the 19 perinatal mortality tool reviews, which is all that most stillborn parents get, and is a review by the hospital itself, the hospital had identified in all cases that there was nothing they could have done. But when the CQC reviewed those cases, they found instances of growth restriction that didn't get referred to serial scans, of gestational diabetes risks that weren't then offered testing. So we're currently in a position where the 2025 stillbirths from that hospital are being looked at again.
Yeah. Gabriella, your experience. And you suffered, as I mentioned in the introduction, you suffered life-changing.
Yes, so I have a 3rd degree tear, or kind of mid-3rd to 4th degree tear, that has left me with fecal incontinence. So, I mean, it's been, my son will be 10 years in September, so I've had to deal with it. And it's a life-changing thing. It's changed my whole life. And I had to just get on. I have, 2 other kids afterward. I had, I faced fear straight on, and I decided to have 2 more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have 3 kids I have to take care of. I have to just keep going.
Yeah.
So.
And what have you made of the interview that Laura did with Kate?
Yeah, I was just telling Tom, I found it quite, there was some good things in there, contradictory. She contradicted herself sometimes. I like that you were asking straight out questions that I would have asked myself. But I felt there was a lot of fluff as well. There's not straight answers from her. It felt like she was speaking to someone who wasn't, it was like speaking to a politician. The answers weren't being answered all the time. And so I called it fluff. Like, there was just fluff. It was just fluff to me.
I think a couple of specific issues with me. When talking about bullying, the Chief Midwifery Officer said people don't come to work and behave as we'd expect them to. And then 2 minutes later he's making a statement that all midwives and obstetricians come to do the best for the people, for the woman in front of them.
Yeah.
I have to question, do they just turn that off and on? The other bit that I took issue with was when you asked about answers for bereaved parents. It was turned into a question about bereavement, and then it was said we have an independent body to do reviews and investigations. The fact is that the MNSI, which is the Maternity and Neonatal Safety, sorry, I can't remember the acronym.
The investigation, but yeah, branch, yeah.
Is only available to maternal deaths, neonatal deaths and intrapartum stillbirths. And somewhere around 90% of stillbirths are antepartum or before 37 weeks and only get the hospital marking its own homework.
And can you just give us a sense of what it is like having to take on a system at a time of such trauma and such grief as well?
No one gives you a book or a patient information leaflet on what you can do. So it takes you time to discover, and you don't learn until you connect with other families. You go through the complaints process and the PMRT process, and you get gaslighted, and then it's whether you decide to accept that or fight it. We have multiple, it's a full-time job, we have multiple strands going on with the GMC, the NMC, a legal case, the trust itself, and campaigning in general, which has now become part of life.
You've had a letter from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting.
Yes, so after that CQC report came out, we wrote to the Secretary of State to say there are up to 19 families who possibly haven't had the right answer, and their stillbirths were now probably 18 months ago. There is, learning aside, this is the only accountability route for them. What are you going to do about that? And the Secretary of State wrote to me yesterday and said there will be an investigation of all those stillbirths in 2025 at that trust. My question is, we believe there were issues with ours in 2022. So what about 2023 and 2024 and even before that? This is the only route for accountability for parents of stillborn children.
7 years later, I mean, even for you, Gabriella, you're still fighting for justice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to speak up. And I was telling him, you know, just speaking up on my behalf. I promised myself that that's the best that I can do, is I can talk about it. And every time I talk about it, I find it's quite therapeutic, but I'm also helping someone else. And I'm sick and tired of all the fluff. I'm sick and tired of all the talking, and I want actual action. People have been waiting for a long time to get answers, and I think it's time. I mean, yes, we can get a maternity commissioner, but that's not enough. You know, there needs to be transparency. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be continuity. You know, and there's a lot of things. It's not just, okay, just get the, you know, the commissioner and that'll help us. No, there's a lot to take on. And there's, you know, the workforce continuity. There's education. There's the training. We need to be everything needs to be trained properly. And there's so much.
So is that your belief in terms of what a resolution or even justice looks like?
Yes.
For those mothers whose permanent injuries could have been preventable?
Yes. And as well as prevention, that goes with the training and education. All of that, the postpartum assistance, and talking about it with not just the moms, but with the fathers. It's always been my thing. Like, and I, you know, ask my husband, how are you feeling? I know, you know, I haven't even asked you how you're feeling, you know, and I'm so glad he's here, because he can talk about this as a father. You know, we need to talk about it with everybody that's involved. We're parents.
Yeah, the whole issue is still taboo. We don't talk about it in society.
Absolutely.
Which is why it gets swept under the carpet. And we need to first start talking about it and then start addressing it. Our view is that all of the reviews that we've had, the MNI, the Baroness Amos review, it's not enough. The system is that disjointed that what we need is a statutory public inquiry which can look at NHS England, but also the Royal Colleges, the regulators, the investigatory bodies, the whole system, and compel evidence from people, including past politicians.
There's a task force. So Wes Treating set up this task force. It's got different strands. He's sort of the overall person in charge of it. Do you get a sense that will achieve anything? How optimistic do you feel about that? I don't know if you two are involved in the task force.
I mean, we know someone more.
Who's on it.
I'm glad that she's on it, because I think that'll make a massive difference. I don't know if it'll be enough. It's not enough.
Yeah, I'm very cynical.
Yeah.
I think there are 3 family members against a raft of clinicians. And I think as a family member, I would be saying to myself, I will always subconsciously prioritise my story. I wouldn't do that job.
I just wonder, though, because you know, public inquiries take a very long time. They cost a lot of money, and it's very easy to lose sort of public support. There is a sense at the moment maternity is gaining traction when it comes to a campaign. Are you not worried that it would take so long, cost so much, that the public will be like, oh, is that still going on?
Yeah. So yes, it will. But we've tried that many local inquiries and limited inquiries that the only thing left to do is a full inquiry. From the cost perspective, yes, it will cost 20 million and take some time, but the maternity system is paying out 1.5 billion in compensation. There's an economic imperative to save that money, to get the system right and to stop having to pay out compensation.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for coming in, sharing us your personal stories. I mean, they sound so traumatic, but good to see you and wish you well in your bid to change going forward. Gabriella Rai, Tom Hendel, Laura Bunda, our health correspondent. Still to come on the UK Tonight, a rapist is jailed for life for deliberately infecting vulnerable men with HIV. And the health data of 500,000 people in the UK is put up for sale on a Chinese website.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect.
Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access.
Let me give you a sneak peek.
It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
A rapist who deliberately infected vulnerable men with HIV has been jailed for life. Adam Hall will serve a minimum of 23 years after being convicted of 5 counts of rape and 7 counts of causing grievous bodily harm. One of his victims was only 15 years old, and police have warned there may be many more yet to be identified. Sky's Barnaby Papadopoulos reports.
I've just gotten off the school bus and I was walking home. And it was just my phone obviously started ringing. Obviously when I picked it up, it was a sexual health nurse. And she just explained that my results had come back and I was HIV positive.
His crimes were calculated and deliberate, their impact devastating and life-changing. Sam, not his real name, was 15 when he contracted HIV from Hall. His words are read by an actor.
What possessed you to do what you did? Not just to me, but to everyone else that you've done it to, like why? What did you gain out of it?
95% of people in the UK with HIV take medication, which leaves the virus undetectable. But within 6 years of his diagnosis, Adam Hall had stopped taking that medication properly. Over the next 7 years, he would go on to deliberately infect 7 other men. 4 of them he raped. Survivors only found out about Hall's HIV when they tested positive themselves.
He was actively seeking young, vulnerable men that were perhaps new to the scene who didn't know about his HIV status. He was actively seeking men for unprotected sexual activity. This was often forceful sexual activity that at times developed into rapes.
The 43-year-old was not in court today to hear the reading of impact statements, having refused to leave the cells for his sentencing. We have revoiced the words of 2 of those anonymous survivors that were read to the court earlier.
Prior to Hall, I'd not been involved in a gay relationship. He was my first experience, and I had nothing to compare it to. I would describe myself as naive. Hall came into my life, and I've been left a shell of who I was.
The first time Hall raped me, I blame myself. I am a broken man. He changed me as a person, who I was to my core, and he did it all for his own gain.
Passing sentence today, the judge said Adam Hall's survivors had all had their futures taken away. He gave him a life sentence, ordering that he serve at least 23 years behind bars. But his offending means life sentences for his victims too. Barnaby Papadopoulos, Sky News.
The medical data of 500,000 people in the UK has been listed for sale online in China. Participants in the health data project Biobank had their information leaked, but the government says it did not include names, addresses, contact details or telephone numbers. Our science and technology editor Tom Clark has more.
When it comes to data breaches, they don't get much bigger or more sensitive. Detailed medical information of 500,000 volunteers in the UK Biobank project were found advertised for sale on Chinese web store Alibaba. Not a hack, it appears individuals from 3 Chinese academic institutions who'd signed contracts to access the data sought to try and sell it, expressly forbidden by the contract.
It's extremely frustrating because we make the data available to bona fide researchers who we have vetted very carefully, who enter into a legally binding agreement with us that they will only use the data for health-related research. And when you have a couple of rogue actors who abuse that, then that makes it puts a bad name on the entire global scientific community.
I'm going to start with the ultrasound, both sides of your neck.
OK. Starting in 2006, UK Biobank recruited 500,000 volunteers to the world's largest and longest-running medical research project. Participants who are now aged between 55 and 90 come from all over the UK. The project has allowed tens of thousands of scientists worldwide to make thousands of new and important discoveries in conditions like heart disease, cancer and dementia. Data shared by volunteers and now offered for sale includes gender, year and month of birth, medical history, lifestyle and mental health information, as well as results from tests on millions of biological samples of blood, saliva and DNA stored in the biobank. According to the Chinese government and Alibaba, links to the data have been removed and none was sold, nor did it contain names, addresses, phone or NHS numbers, but theoretically detailed enough for identification of a few participants by bad actors.
The chances of this turning something is probably quite small, but if you are that 1 in a 500,000 person who gets blackmailed for this, this is not good. And the whole point is we shouldn't even be talking about this. We should be so far away from this point.
UK Biobank has suspended all access to its data while it puts in restrictions to prevent future downloads and apologised to its participants. The data and time they volunteered so valuable, it should be shared with the right people and not hawked online by the wrong ones. Tom Clark, Sky News.
Still to come on the UK tonight, 3 men are found guilty of raping a woman in Brighton last year in what's been described as a callous attack. And the government strikes a new deal with France to try to stop small boat crossings. We'll have the details.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok. We've been undercover inside Asia's huge network of scam centres.
This compound is, without a doubt, the worst. It is essentially hell on earth.
We cover a vast, varied and dynamic region that's shaping the rest of the world. Okay, there's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait, right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them, quite often, is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away. Okay, but
Listen,
I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war, and all around us was destruction and the sound of battle. I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent.
Three asylum seekers have been found guilty over the rape of a woman on Brighton Beach. The men, who had been living in a nearby hotel, targeted the woman after she became separated from friends on a night out. Sky's Emma Birchley joins me now. Emma, this is a particularly gruesome case.
Yeah, the ordeal that this woman went through was described as cynical, predatory and callous in court. So it was the early hours of October the 4th last year. The woman became separated from her friends. She was seen staggering in the street, was the phrase used, incapacitated, in no state to resist. And she was seen by the 3 men. So these are 3 asylum seekers. They lived together in an asylum hotel in Horsham. They dragged her behind a beach hut and she was repeatedly raped. The jury was told how they treated the woman like meat, and she remembers being spat on, kicked, having her throat grabbed. She thought she was going to be killed. Right, so there were two people. Two of the three were actually charged with the counts of rape, 2 counts each. These were men that had met in a small boat on their way to the UK in June of last year. So Ibrahim Al-Shaf, 25 years old, from Egypt, and Abdullah Ahmadi, 26, from Iran. Both denied the 2 counts of rape. They said that she'd gone with them consensually. It was consensual sex, that she'd approached them. Jury didn't buy that and they were found guilty. Now, the third man was Karin Al-Danasur, 20 years old, from Egypt. He shared a room with Al-Shaf. He was jointly charged on all 4 counts of rape, but it was as a secondary party. So the phrasing for encouraging the rape by his actions at the scene, including filming it. And the victim says that she sees his face every time she closes her eyes. He's there laughing at her. The jury was told that he sent that video to Ahmadi on Snapchat, and the video shows Al-Shaf smiling, sticking out his tongue during the attack, even slapping her in the face. And interestingly, Karin Al-Danasur, the prosecution say, was convicted of murder, actually, back in Egypt. It's something that the defence said wasn't the case, but that was all going on as well. Now, after the verdicts, all found guilty, Detective Chief Superintendent Richard McDonough from Sussex Police spoke of her bravery.
Today's verdicts conclude a challenging and distressing trial with an immensely brave victim, survivor, as its centre. This young woman has shown incredible strength to report to the police, support our investigation and give evidence in court in extremely difficult circumstances. I cannot commend her enough. Thanks to her, 3 predatory offenders have been brought to justice and will now face sentencing for their crimes. While I hope this outcome can bring some measure of closure, she must live with the long-lasting trauma of this ordeal.
It was a 5-week trial, 16 hours of deliberation before they were found guilty. Now, all 3 at the time have been appealing refused asylum applications. They're due to be sentenced at Hove Crown Court on July the 15th. And the government after will seek, we're told, to deport them. So, yeah, I mean, a truly, truly awful case.
OK. Emma, thanks very much indeed for that. Now, the UK and France have signed a new deal aimed at reducing the number of people crossing the Channel in small boats. The £662 million agreement includes the building of a new immigration removal centre in Dunkirk and will also see riot police stationed along the French coast. Our Europe correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
We don't have any food, anything. We just try to get food there. So it's difficult. UK have more options for immigrants, that's why.
That was Hassan, an Eritrean hoping to make it from this beach across to the UK within the next month or 2. But the British government today has signed a new deal to try and prevent people like Hassan from making that journey.
A big chunk of the new money that we have promised is in a flexible fund where I've been very clear we will fund only the things that we believe are going to work in order to disrupt and drive down the number of boat crossings. So the totality of this package is a huge improvement on what's gone before. It's a landmark deal and I'm very pleased to be able to sign it today.
The deal is worth £662 million over 3 years. That money will go to providing 50 more riot police to patrol the beaches, and new surveillance and drone technology to monitor the coastline. But it comes with a condition. £100 million of it could be withdrawn after a year if the British government doesn't think that the French are making enough progress.
People will still make the journey, you think?
Of course. They try, but it will be more difficult when we compare to the past days.
This is one of the main camps. We're about, I don't know, a mile or 2 inland, and you can kind of see the infrastructure. There's lots of portaloos here. The people in yellow high-vis jackets are charities here to hand out food. Some of those orange life vests waiting for the next moment when the winds die down and people can try and make that crossing. And when they do, they'll go from here, they'll walk towards the beaches in the middle of the night, under darkness and then try and cross into the UK.
These deterrence policies are just putting more people at risk and increasing the risk, and we're leaving people into the hands of everything that can happen at the border, which is smuggling, trafficking. It's not actually decreasing the crossings.
Interesting, talking to some of the charities here, they just don't think that these policies work or will work, because they say that most people here have an option. One is to remain in their home countries where they face the risk of torture or imprisonment or death. The other alternative is to come here where, yeah, sure, they face the risk of French riot police, treatment by smugglers, and of course the real risks of trying to cross the English Channel. But by comparison, the risks they face here aren't as bad as the risks they face back home. And so that is why people, in their opinion, will still keep coming to northern France to try and make that trip across to the UK.
Somalia to Yemen, dangerous. Yemen to Sudan, dangerous. Libya to Araba, dangerous. Here on UK, dangerous.
So far this year, around 6,000 migrants have made it across the Channel to the UK. That's actually 36% fewer than this time last year. But the summer months which are coming are when, of course, the winds are calmer and the sea is less rough. And so the next few months will provide an immediate test for this new deal.
Alistair Bunkle reporting there. Still to come on the UK tonight. We'll hear why drastic action is needed to save red squirrels. And the end of an era. The BBC blows the whistle on my old stomping ground, Football Focus. We'll discuss that next.
With respect, Minister, answer the question. It's you.
Hello and welcome, I'm Cathy Newman.
So could the outcome of these elections be manipulated? New me, new show, new furniture. Hard news needs a hard chair. I feel like I'm in therapy.
Oh, there's room for two on this one.
Do you think people will take me seriously with my feet up?
Sorry, madam, but we're closing now.
Oh, sorry. Sofa sorted. Let's get this show on the road.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
All alcohol products, not just wine, will have labels warning of liver disease and the link to fatal cancers.
Is it crazy? It's an industry worth around €14 billion a year. That's why Italy sees this Irish plan as such a threat.
It's always instructive and occasionally entertaining to hear what Donald Trump has to say on the issue of Brexit.
She's got her own way of doing it, that's okay.
The job takes me to every corner of this island.
The rioting stemmed from a horrific daytime stabbing attack at a primary school in the city centre.
The scale of the rioting and the destruction it caused is pretty much unprecedented here in Dublin.
Jerry, any comment on the judge's decisions? Do you feel vindicated, Jerry? This is the end, the somewhat chaotic end, of a 52-day trial.
Micheál Martin could be set to head back to government with the Taoiseach Simon Harris.
Are you confident that you can now return as Taoiseach?
I'm cautiously optimistic and excited.
A mystery press conference hastily called. Leo Varadkar strode out and didn't disappoint.
I am resigning as President and Leader of Fine Gael effective today.
The people here sometimes feel they're somewhat neglected by the Irish government, to the extent that this place is sometimes known as the Forgotten County.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks, but none have ever been found.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland. Sky News, get the full story first.
Coming up, a warning that red squirrels could soon be extinct in England without drastic measures. But first, David Garrido's here with the sports. Today we're talking about one of my old stomping grounds, yes. Football Focus, David.
We are. Look, let's do this together. Come on, let's not cry because it's over. Let's laugh and smile because it happened. I mean, look, Manish, you'll know, you presented the show for a while, but there are shows that come and go, and there are shows that come and stay.
Yes.
This show come and stay more than half a century.
52 years.
52 years. And I think, you know, certainly for me growing up as a young sort of budding wannabe journalist, broadcaster, I remember watching the show after playing football on a Saturday morning and then coming home, shower, watch. It was kind of like an appointments view. It set me straight for my weekend. I kind of then knew what's going on in the football over the weekend. So I think it had this unique place. And also, I think, from my sake, it was where it was a home of real quality filmmaking.
Absolutely.
As well. Would you agree?
Now, actually, that was a point I was going to make a little earlier. There was something about they made their VTs, as we used to call it back then.
Yeah.
With that kind of stylised kind of, you know, way of doing things, which was quite innovative back then.
Yes.
And you didn't see it, but now it's become the norm. People do it, they can do it digitally, they can do it on TikTok, on Instagram, whatever.
Yes.
Back then, when you've got a little moving shot from across a room with 2 seats on a head-to-head interview.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I remember from Football Focus. And I remember, like, John Motson sat down with Arsene Wenger.
Yes.
You know, when you say those words, you think, my goodness, I'm talking about legends of the game.
And these days you see it every other reel on Instagram. But I think that this is what set the tone, set the standard. And for me, part of the sort of holy trinity of football programming at the BBC with Match of the Day and Final Score, for me, they were the ones that you really wanted to be involved in as a young journalist. I was lucky that I worked with you on that show. Just worth saying that Alex Kajelski, who's director of BBC Sport, said Football Focus has been a hugely important programme in the history of BBC Sport. It's played a key role in telling the stories of the game for generations of viewers, you know, a real nod to the longevity of the programme. The decision was made before last week's wider BBC Savings announcement, reflecting the continued shift in how audiences engage with football and our commitment to evolving how we deliver content to reach fans wherever they are. So it's to do with, you know, the world has changed. You know, because of these things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's obviously they've got to move with the times. And we knew that Football Focus was under pressure over the last few years. Alex Scott has been presenting it, but I do remember I'd like to call it the Halcyon era, the Scene era, the Dan Walker era, and of course Ray Stubbs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 22 years ago, I started hosting Football Focus from 2004 to 2009. Take a look at this. Good afternoon, welcome to Football Focus. Everyone's been united in their praise for Wayne, and we've got the best verdict on Rooney. And hoping to put a smile on our faces today, Gordon Strachan and Mark Lawrenson. Maybe not. A hat-trick on your debut is the stuff footballers dream of, but when it's scored after a 3-month layoff for arguably the biggest club in the world, it surely doesn't get any better. Focus has sought the views of a Manchester United legend on what next for Wayne Rooney. Not quite sure about the hairstyle back there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, but you've got one of those baby faces, Manish. I mean, you literally haven't changed.
It's a little bit greyer right now, I can tell you.
You're 27. You and me both, my friend. You and me both. But no, I think you know, this is such a significant moment because I mentioned before, you know, there are some programmes. I used to work on BBC Radio 1 Newsbeat, another sort of heritage show as far as, you know, news journalism, even sport is concerned. So 52 years, and they will be saying bye-bye at the end of this season with that final show with Alex Scott in the chair. So yes, the end of an era there. But let's talk about a young man who's very much at the opposite end of his career, but who suffered a bit of a setback today.
Okay. After 20 years at Liverpool Football Club, I'll be leaving at the end of the season.
For generations, English football has stayed in England. The Premier League was their home. But things are changing.
Real Madrid have signed Jude Bellingham.
The greatest football club in the history of the game.
Vista al Barça.
Fichar por un club como Real Madrid.
And action. A record-breaking number are now playing in Europe's other 4 top leagues. And it's not just English players, it's the same for Scottish players, Welsh players and Republic of Ireland players too. And it's a range of ages, from academy graduates seeking a first-team opportunity to established stars playing in their prime. More and more are packing their bags. The question is, why?
It's obviously a massive year, and
Conservationists have warned that red squirrels will become extinct in mainland England within 25 years unless millions of grey squirrels are culled. Greys outcompete reds for food, habitat and also spread a deadly disease. And Natural England says a coordinated suppression of grey squirrels is the best hope for a significant red recovery. But how popular would that be? I'm joined now by the founder of the Save Our Reds campaign, Marie Carter-Robb. Marie, great to see you.
Thanks for inviting us on, Manish. Good to be here to talk about this subject.
Yeah, 287,000 red squirrels in the UK. As far as greys are concerned, 2.7 million. I mean, how close are we to the point of no return with the native species?
Oh, my goodness, Manish, it's just been a story of decline over the past 150 years since greys were introduced by the Victorians into a park in London. At the time, reds were seen throughout the UK, 3.5 million. Today, it's something like 140 to 150,000. Greys are now at 2.7 million. The campaign, Save Our Reds campaign, has just produced an app, which I can, tell you exclusively about. And it shows the shocking decline where, we can only see that it's managing decline. That's what we're doing at the moment. The vital work of volunteer rangers is absolutely wonderful, but we really, really need a national joined-up conversation with a number of different measures in place, and I can outline those in a moment. But the petition, which is at www.change.org, save-our-reds, 75,000 voices at the moment, and just visit it. Please, everyone, sign it and share it. Share the hell out of it, because we need that national conversation. It feels like lots of disparate bodies are talking about saving our red squirrels, but really we need a national joined-up conversation, because otherwise it's just managing decline, and it makes me sick to the stomach that we're going to lose this vital species, which is vital for our woodlands, if we don't do something now.
So what is it, Marie, about the squirrel pox virus that makes the greys immune but is virtually fatal for reds?
Well, the greys, Manish, are carriers of the squirrel pox virus. They're immune to it. But the reds, it kills. And that's the problem. And I'm well aware that the greys, it's not their fault they were introduced into the UK by the Victorians. It's not at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm an animal welfare supporter and conservationist. I don't want to kill animals, but we've got to a state where if we don't do something urgently, we will lose this iconic woodland creature. And it's about different measures, and it's about protecting our habitats. So actually enforcing a 20% set aside of woodlands, conifer woodlands, which are commercial, but we can save part of those because they are the homes of red squirrels, and also mixed woodland, getting that in place more. So oaks, you've got oak trees, hazel, ash. So protecting the habitats of the red squirrels. Properly funding a squirrel pox vaccine, that was stopped due to lack of funding. The Morden Institute desperately needs that funding. That was stopped several years ago. Why? We need that funding now. And also grey squirrel fertility control, plus more rangers on the grounds. They're doing an amazing job out there, Manish. They really are. But they need to be deployed on the ground to humanely capture grey squirrels that come into red squirrel habitats, because if we don't do this, then we are just effectively managing decline, Manish. And the funding is available. 5 million, I believe, lottery funding was made available. But it's just not filtering through to, funding those the amazing work of red squirrel rangers. It now needs to happen now, not next year, not in 10 years' time, because in 10 years' time, it will be too late. We won't have this iconic creature. The government talked about funding the recovery, the reintegration of the golden eagle into the UK. Well, actually, we can do with that money to save red squirrels.
I'm sure. Marie, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Marie Carter-Robb, founder of the Save Our Reds campaign. Now for a check on the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
And the weather stays very settled for the next few days, with the emphasis on dry conditions and some long spells of sunshine. But the easterly wind will bring in low cloud at times. This evening, that cloud will spread across the North Sea coast into central parts of the country where skies remain clear. It will become chilly with a touch of frost in central places.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
That's it from us. Up next, it's The World with Barbara Serra. The UK Tonight will be back on Monday night at 8 o'clock.